let's find our soil blockers so we can start some seeds today. We'll grab our soil blocker. The mini one is all that we need today. We will need some trays to put those soil blocks in, so let's grab some of them. And these are the trays that I have. I have some Bootstrap Farmer trays. I have some from Amazon. They're all very heavy duty, which is definitely something, it's an investment. I purchased some last year. So that's an example of one of them. I got that on Amazon. But it is so sturdy. Even when it's filled with plants, you can hold it with one hand and it doesn't bend and break like some of the other brands, Burpee, ones that you can get super cheap but generally only last about one season. So there's one of them. So here's another tray, another brand that I have. They are called Homegrown. Again, an Amazon product. Same quality as that first one that I showed you. Super, super strong. I think they show like a 20-pound brick when they're doing their advertising that it wouldn't bend. And then the last one that I had mentioned is a Bootstrap Farmer tray. Let me see if I can find one of those for you. And this is the Bootstrap Farmer tray. I think it says it on the front. Yep, Bootstrap Farmer. Bought these on Amazon. You can actually buy it right from their Bootstrap Farmer website if you wanted. They come with just the 1020 tray, which is the bottom part. Just as good, strong as the other ones. You can also buy them with the 72 count insert if you wanted to use that instead of soil blocking that I'm going to show you today. What's really nice about these ones, there's a little hole in the bottom, so once all your plants have grown, got roots, you can stick your finger up there to push them out. You can use a popsicle stick, but it pops the plant starts out pretty easily. All these trays that we're talking about today, this is the Bootstrap Farmer one, but the other two that I showed you, they're called 1020 trays. So simply that just means that it's 10 inches wide by 20 inches long. That's all that the 1020 means. Hey, good morning everybody. Thanks for joining me. Today we are going to get some peppers and onion seeds started in some soil. I've got some equipment here. We've got some soil. We've got some pots. Some soil block makers. I'll talk about that and what that looks like. Some water and a different growing medium if you weren't interested in soil block making. But first, before we get it all going today, we need to decide what type of peppers and onions we're growing this year. Last year I grew some favorites that were awesome and very, very productive. This year I purchased some new ones. So let's see which are going to get started today. All right, we've got to go get our seeds. This is how I store my seeds. They are in a craft storage box. I've gotten these at Michael's. I've gotten them online. Essentially, they're for 4x6 photo storage. What I like about them is they're in a big box. Each container can be You can store what you want in each container. A little clip on it. And you can open it, close it, take what you want out of it. Keeps everything nice and organized. Organization is definitely key when you have this many seeds. What I like about it in the summer, say if I wanted to go plant some kale, I can literally just take my box, this is kale, bring it down to the garden bed, plant what I want, close it up, helps keep the dirt out, helps me prevent from dropping the seeds where I don't want them. Alright, so we need onions and peppers today. So there's the onion seeds and peppers. let's take these and go get the process started. All right, let me move some equipment out of the way here so we can go through some seeds and decide which ones we're going to start. Start with onions. I get most of my seeds from Baker Creek. They are an online company based out of Missouri. If you are in that area, they actually have a store that you can go directly to and buy seeds from there. Me being that I'm up in the Northeast, I have to order them online. Rareseeds.com is their website. I have very good luck with growing their seeds. Very good quality, good germination. It is currently January and I still have onions that are storing very, very well. I will show you what those look like. All right, here's a picture of the onion braids that I did this past fall. They are all tied up with their stems with an addition of some string, and that keeps them quite firm. And what I do is I would come, pair of scissors, cut it whatever I need, and then the rest just hangs until I need the rest of them. I do see one that needs to be cut out of there. It's starting to sprout, but great way to store them. Last year I made some onion braids with the onions that I grew. I found that it is a great way to store them. It's a very quick, easy visual of how they're doing. You can see if any of them are rotting, and they kind of look pretty. All right, so let's go through these seeds. Something to know about if you're going to be starting your own onions. I live in the Northeast and I need to grow long day onions. So if you look on the back of a package, it'll tell you what type of onion they are. So a long day onion, intermediate day onion, or short day onion. And those are all based on your growing zones, the amount of light you have, daylight hours. And in order for an onion to bulb up, to turn into an onion, get some decent size, you have to grow the correct type of onion for your area. For me, living in the Northeast, it's a long day onion. This year I also bought some onions from Territorial Seed Company. This will be our first time starting seeds from this company, so I can't really speak of their seed quality or how well things grow, but I ordered from them this year because I was able to find Patterson onions. I grew those last year. They grew wonderfully. Let's narrow down what we're going to grow this year. So we're going to grow some Alicia Craig. These grew huge. I will see if I still have a few of those hanging in my onion braids and I'll show you. But some of them were like softball size, fit in the palm of my hand last year. We harvested them. So Alicia Craig from Baker Creek for sure. We're going to do some Brunswick. Those are red storage onion. They don't get super big, but they've been storing really, really well this winter. And then we're going to grow Wethersfield onions. Again, these are another red variety. The other good standby to grow is a yellow sweet Spanish onion. They grew really well last year and store pretty well. One last one that from Baker Creek that I'm going to grow this year is, it's called a Globo onion. They grow really well. They grow really big, but they don't store very well. So last fall, after I was harvesting all my onions, I was sure to make sure that I kept these ones to the side and just use those up first so they didn't go bad. And I think that those are all of the Baker Creek ones that I'm growing this year. Let's go over a couple from a different company that I bought. So I purchased some onion seeds from Territorial Seed Company this year. I grew Patterson onions last year from a different company. I forgot what the name of it was, but I was able to find some seeds from this company, so I figured I'd give them a try. Patterson, they were very prolific. They weren't super big, but a lot of them grew, so I thought it would be worth growing them again this year. This is a new variety for me, again from Territorial Seed Company. It's called Talon F1, so it is a hybrid. The reason I chose to try this onion this year, on their website it said that it can be stored for up to a year, which if you've ever grown onions before, a year is a really long time. Most onions, for me personally, I don't have a great place to store them as far as like a root cellar or whatever. I do store them in my basement. They should last 4-6 months at the best. Then they start getting soft, and sometimes they start sprouting. So why not? All right, so those are the onions we're going to try. Let's go through our peppers. It's really hard to decide on what peppers to start. These are all of my pepper seeds. Bell peppers, mostly sweet peppers. I do grow just a few jalapenos. We don't use tons of spicy peppers, so just a few jalapenos seems to be enough to get our needs met. Another spicy pepper that we don't mind, but it's super spicy, is a Sugar Rush Peach. This is from Baker Creek. And Baker Creek does sell a jalapeno type pepper, but it's called a natapino. So it tastes just like a jalapeno, but there is zero spice to it, which is pretty cool if you like the taste of jalapenos, but if you're sensitive to spice. A good old standby every year is sweet banana peppers. If you like banana peppers and you were going to start them on your own, just make sure that you do buy the sweet banana peppers, because they do actually have spicy banana peppers, so just check your packaging. So this year I am starting a lot of pepper seeds, new varieties to me. So I think I've pulled out all the ones that I want to start, so let's go through those. All right, let's go through the spicy peppers first. So we just talked about this one. This is the natapino. Tastes like jalapenos, but no spice. Sugar Rush Peach. They are very spicy. They're supposed to be sweet with a hint of peach-ish flavor. I think it gets more the name from the color versus the sweet part, but pretty prolific. And then jalapenos. They can come in the standard green jalapeno, but they also can come, so this is a jalapeno, but it is a yellow jalapeno. Taste the same. They also have orange jalapenos. They taste the same as well. Sometimes the orange and yellow have a touch more sweetness to them, but pretty similar in flavor. And all the other peppers that I'm growing are going to be mostly a bell pepper type. This year, the Monster Yellow bell pepper. That's new to me. I've grown this one before. It's a yellow bell pepper. This one is new to me this year as well. It's an orange bell pepper. good old standby California Wonder. They're a green pepper. If you let them mature long enough, they will turn into a red pepper. Orange bell pepper, sweet banana peppers, and we're going to try a purple bell pepper again this year. We've tried these 2 years in a row, different companies, and didn't end up getting the purple bell pepper. I don't know if you follow any gardening channels or whatever. It's called the Pepper Gate. People planted a bunch of pepper seeds and didn't end up getting what was in the package. So maybe somewhere along the way, seed companies ended up getting some different seeds than they thought they were getting. And King of the North, it's another bell pepper, but it's a huge bell pepper. Grew this last year and they were delicious. And this is it's called a sweet red Marconi bell pepper flavor, but not bell pepper shape. It's a long, skinny, thick walled pepper. So now that we have our peppers picked out, we need to work on getting some soil blocks made. So let me get all these seeds out of the way so we don't get them dirty, and we'll move to the next step. The next step is I like to start my pepper seeds in soil blocks. So I thought we could go through what a soil block is, what you have to use to make them, pros and cons to them. So let's get that going. I've got to get some water and get the soil wetter. When I make soil blocks, I like the soil to be very, very moist. It just makes it easier to fit them in. So let's get this water in here so it can start absorbing all that water. All right, so a soil block maker is this. It's a metal device. Most of them have the small one has a plastic base. The larger one here actually has a metal base. So I'm going to put it into my soil, and there's some holes in the bottom. And you press them in, you press all the soil in, and you put it inside of a container. You press it down, and then you're going to have little tiny blocks. So just a quick explanation of what a soil block maker is. We'll go through the whole process and I will tell you more about it. So they do have soil block makers. This is a mini soil block maker. So this actually makes 20, I think they're 1-inch soil blocks. So good size to start your peppers in. The benefits to using a soil block maker is you have just a very little bit of soil that you need to start each seed. What can happen if you use a larger amount of soil, sometimes your peppers, onions, whatever seed you're starting actually doesn't germinate. So you can have a lot of wasted soil if your seeds don't germinate. If a seed doesn't germinate from here, it's only an inch by inch piece of soil. It's not a whole lot of waste. So that's the mini block one. Like I said, it makes 20 1-inch blocks. The other one that I have is a larger soil block maker. I think that they're 2.5 by 2.5 inch. Same idea is you take the soil and you fill it up, and you put it, we'll use one of these trays, and then you press it down and all the soil will come out. You can use these little soil blocks once they've grown and sprouted. You take them, and when you use this larger soil block, it actually has a space that you can drop them in, and then the plant can continue to grow. All right, let's get this space ready and available, and we shall get started. So for today's purposes, we're going to be using just the small soil block. Pepper seeds are pretty small and they don't always germinate well, so I like using the little soil block to kind of get the best bang for my buck as far as space is concerned. if I was to start all my seeds in here, that's number one, a lot of soil, but also a lot of real estate, because I start a lot of seeds. So if I remember correctly, in a 10 by 20 tray, using the mini soil block maker, I could essentially have 150 plants started. So for this one, this is a 72 count planter. So in the same amount of space, I could start 150 seeds versus needing 2 of these trays to start the same amount. So for space purposes, I really like, for some seeds, I like using the soil block maker. So I do like using throwaway gloves for this. This is a bit messy. Let's get started mixing up this soil. Again, like I said, I like using throwaway gloves for this because they can get kind of messy. All right. So my soil is pretty moist. Like I said, I like it to be really moist so that way it fits inside. So here I'm filling up the mini soil block maker. All right. Trying to press it into each of the little 20 holes
in the bottom.
So we're going to take this soil.
Because the holes are so small, I find that it's most easy. It's easier to press it in with my hand.
Really good. I don't have as much luck with the little soil block maker, making sure.
And once I get them filled, I give it a good hard press into the tray, pull up on the lever, and it gives me 20 little soil blocks. And now I will do this until the tray is filled with the amount of soil blocks that I need. And so here I'm trying to show you how you would fill up the larger soil block. My soil was not at the perfect moisture level to get it to stay in the larger one. It was a little too moist. Now that the large soil blocker is filled up, I'm pressing down on the handle, and what that does is it presses the soil into a square, and it leaves little tiny holes there, if you can see. Is making small mini soil blocks to show you how, if you started your plants in a small mini soil block, that once they've outgrown their soil, you can make a larger soil block and set it right inside of it, and the roots will continue to grow into the larger one. And that is how you would transfer from a mini soil block that you've planted in to give the plant more soil for the next growing. And now we need to get our containers filled with soil so we can get ready to start our onion seeds. Some seeds planted. Can I bring these a little closer? So these are onion seeds, except for they're called pelletized. So there's a little bit of clay that's put on them, and it makes it easier for planting. So the only thing with pelletized seeds is if you are not using up your seeds year to year, pelletized seeds, their germination rate goes down after the first year because the clay affects the way that the seed is able to stay stored. And let's show you what a regular onion seed would look like without pellets, or without it being pelletized. So this is what a typical onion seed looks like. So let's start planting. So essentially I'm just going to be sprinkling it on the top of the soil. And then once I get them somewhat spread around, I'm going to just give a gentle pressure, get them down into the soil a bit. So I prefer to start my onion seeds in pots. Multiple onions all in the same pot, and then as they grow up I will pull them out and plant them in the ground once the ground is ready for them. I have in the past tried planting them individually in soil blocks. I have tried planting them in like a 72 cell tray, and I just find the germination rate is kind of poor. So I find that I end up having just a whole lot of real estate that isn't used, and it's just takes up a lot of space. This, you can have 100 onions sitting all in one pot, and if a few don't germinate, you're really not even going to notice. As you saw just a short bit ago, I did put some lighter soil on top of the other soil that I put in these containers. The soil that I like growing in is the Coast of Maine Castine blend. It is a raised bed mix. I have found that it works really well to start seeds in, but for tiny seeds like this that I'm just planting on top of the soil, I want it to be a little bit more fine and a little bit more loose. So the soil that I put on top of the Coast of Maine, the stuff that's super light and fluffy, that is a Miracle-Gro organic vegetable soil. It's got a little bit more peat moss, a little finer,
And I find that the onions will probably germinate a little bit better in the looser soil than anything that has a little bit of texture or bark to it. So, like I said, that onions don't always have the best germination rate, depending on how old your seeds are. If you buy onion seeds, it's probably best to use most of them up. Some of these seeds are from 2023, so I'm just heavily planting. And in a couple weeks, if I find that not enough of them have germinated, then I'll just do another planting. But I'm probably putting, I don't know, 50 to 75 seeds in my hand. I'm just putting it in these pots. These pots I think are 4-inch pots. So these seeds actually look different than onion seeds I've seen in the past. They're a little brownish. So most onion seeds that I've seen are usually black. So these have a little greenish hue to them. So this is the new seed variety that I'm trying, Talon. I haven't tried them before. So we will see how it turns out. But I think all onion seeds that I've ever planted are usually black, so like even the red onion seeds are black. We shall find out. Alright, and then the last ones to plant are the pelletized seeds. And those are the white clay coated ones. So this is the first time I'm planting with pelletized seeds, so we shall see how it goes. But I could see how if I was planting that outside, how it would be very helpful as far as spacing goes. Less important when you're starting them in a pot, because when you end up planting them outside, you will be separating them. I am going to sprinkle on just a little bit more of this soil so they're covered slightly. Definitely not heavy, and if a few are showing, it's not a big deal. When you are starting seeds, you do always want to make sure that they are just slightly moist, because if they dry out, it can stop the germination process. And if it starts sprouting and then it gets too dry, the seed won't continue to grow. And I will input some pictures of the different types of soil that I was talking about. I prefer to not start my seeds in seed starting mix. So if you went to the store and you bought seed starting mix, it should be very fluffy, it should be very fine, shouldn't have any, shouldn't have any bark or any sticks or anything in it. So that way it is super loose and things will sprout in it very easily. The downfall to seed starting mix is there is very, if any, nutrients in it. So as soon as that seed sprouts, it's going to need some nutrients in the soil to continue to grow. And so that's one of my reasons of just growing in something that already has some nutrients built into it, some organic fertilizers in there, so that way once the seed sprouts, it can take right off and have the nutrients that it needs. And I will keep these seeds all moist, and generally onions will sprout. Little green sprouts will start coming up in 1 to 2 weeks, 7 to 14 days. One very important thing to do when you are starting seeds is to label which container contains which seeds, because you think you're going to remember and then you don't, and then it's mystery plants, and those are hard to figure out. I find what I use for labels is just some envelopes ripped in half with some tape, and I tape it right to the container. I like to put the tape right over the writing, so that way if it does happen to get wet, the tape will hopefully keep the marker from smudging and I'd still be able to read it. Generally it's safe to start planting onions out as long as there's no more hard frosts. I tend to wait till definitely the end of April, more to middle of May, before I put my onion seeds outside. I think per our weather and the fact that they're pretty hardy, they could go out sooner, but when you put 3 or 4 months work into something, you definitely want to, I find myself wanting to be super cautious because it's a lot of time and energy put in. All right, so those are all labeled. I'm glad I didn't forget to do that. Now on to the peppers. All right, here are my soil blocks that we made earlier. We need to decide which peppers we're starting, and I need to start some labels so that way I keep track of what seed I'm putting where. All right, so to start pepper seeds, I'm going to bring you closer so you can have an up front close view. So with the soil block maker, if you look in there, there's a little piece of metal that sticks up. It's supposed to make some indent in the soil. I find that it doesn't indent the soil very well. So with pepper seeds, you aren't planting them right on top of the soil, so you want them in the soil a little bit. So sometimes I take a toothpick, go down, kind of swirl around a little bit, make a hole, and I generally will go through, make holes on all of them before I start planting. I have an old skewer that I think used to be for like shish kebabs. We don't ever use them for shish kebabs, so I like this better because it's going to get you a bigger hole to be able to put the pepper seeds in easier. So let's, obviously with these soil blocks being pretty small, we've got to be pretty ginger as far as pushing down into them because they could split apart. But definitely this is more effective of making a good size hole that you would need to be planting a pepper seed in. All right, let me show you what a pepper seed looks like. So most pepper seeds are going to look exactly like you would find inside of a pepper that you buy from the store, stuff that you would take out of the center when you're cutting it up, dicing it up to use it. So they're round, flat. So I'm going to take one pepper seed and drop it in each one of these holes. And we're starting with the California Wonder pepper. So these are just a bell pepper, sweet bell pepper. All right, I'm going to continue planting all of these, and I will meet you back here. All right, so now that I got all the peppers on the top, I'm going to take my toothpick And just press it down into the hole. You want to make sure that they've got good contact with the soil so that way they don't dry out. And just like with the onions, I'm going to be sprinkling on some of the All right, so just like the onions, I just use a piece of paper. I use an envelope and I will tape it on the front. And that way I can remember what I planted where. Because a pepper seed, it doesn't matter whether it's spicy, if it's sweet, a pepper look the same as the next pepper plant. So definitely good to keep them labeled and organized. As an experiment this year, I am going to try starting my peppers like I've started my onions, just in a container of soil, dumping the seeds in there, and once they sprout, I would put them in a smaller individual to start a lot of seeds. So I'm going to get these filled up. So as you're gardening and you are learning to plant seeds, one cool thing is to just try different roots and different avenues and to see really what works best for you. So we're going to get some peppers planted in these 3, and we are almost done. And just like the onions, I'm going to sprinkle them around. I'm not going to go definitely nearly as heavy as I did with the onions because I already have a lot of pepper seeds started. So I'm just going to use a toothpick and separate these a little bit. let's write down which peppers are in which tray. Put some tape on the sticky note, and I'm just going to tape it on the front. All right, there we go. This will be our experiment for peppers this year. And these are all the seeds that I started today. These are the onion seeds. In case you were interested in the seed companies that I use, or the type of seed that I started. So those were the onions, and here are the peppers. Feel free to send me a message if you had any questions about any of these. Most of these I've all gotten online. And there are a lot of peppers we started, and a fair amount of onions that we started today. All right, here is the additional heat mat. We're going to put the peppers on it. And these heat mats that I got are designed for those 10-20 trays. Again, the 10-20 is just 10 inches wide, 20 inches long, but it's nice because the heat mats are exactly the same size. All right, so my peppers are all organized and written down of what they are. And now we just need to water the tops, and we want to make sure that these stay watered well. I do have this watering container. It is a 3-gallon container, and it's got this cool hose attachment that will just give a nice little mist, so that way you're not moving your little seeds around. You're just getting everything nice and moist. So we'll get all these moistened up, and I'll be right back with you. Water down in these little channels, so that way everything can stay nice and moist. One thing that I do differently when I'm using soil blocks is I will put a cover over the top. And when I say a cover over the top, you can get these clear covers. This one's a Jiffy brand, so it would have been one that I had bought a container to start some seeds in. So what that does is it allows the condensation to stay in there. The thing with soil blocks is they can dry out pretty quickly, so it is good to keep them covered up. If you didn't have a plastic cover like that, you could use some plastic wrap, just something to keep the moisture in until they start sprouting. And here are the sweet potatoes we started last week. Nothing happening yet, but they're just sitting on a heat mat. As you can see, I turned on some of the grow lights just to give me some better light in here, but I will be turning those off. They don't need to stay on until something sprouts. Here are the onions we started. Those don't need any heat. They will just sit here and start germinating on their own. Let's get the top of those all watered. I'm just going to give a little bit of moisture on top, just that dry soil that's on top. But I will fill the bottom like I did with the peppers, just so they can absorb water better. when you are starting seeds, initially as you're just trying to keep the seeds moist, you can water from the top. But an important thing when you're starting, or once the seeds have already sprouted, it's really best to, they call bottom water. So putting water down here in the base of the tray, because roots are going to grow where the water is. So if you water from the bottom, the roots are going to grow down and they'll be deeper, healthier roots. I'm going to put some water here in the bottom. So if any of the soil that didn't get moistened by what we just did, it can absorb it as it walks. That's how you start using pepper seeds. Peppers will be sitting on so we will be watching them, keeping them well watered. And peppers, like I said, sometimes take 3 weeks, 4 weeks to germinate. Onions, probably within a week or so, we'll start seeing some green sprouts. So thanks for joining me today. And remember, homegrown always tastes better.